1. So I'm a 24-year-old woman and my best friend is a 23-year-old woman. We lived with 2 other girls for a year, one of which, 25, we became quickly very close friends to. In hindsight, there were a lot of red flags. Long story short, she was extremely narcissistic and manipulative, would constantly orchestrate drama and fights, say racist and other problematic things, try to isolate us from other friends and family, and ultimately made the space completely unlivable. This all came to a head when one of our closest friends told her that she thought her behavior was rude, and crazy roommate went ballistic, demanded that our friend be permanently banned from the apartment, and proceeded to stonewall and ignore us for about 2 or 3 weeks. Obviously, this was an uncomfortable way to live, so we tried to talk things through with her, but it only resulted in her cutting us off completely because we had let our friend disrespect her in her home, aka politely yet directly telling her that she was being rude. We said that we didn't have to be friends, but we'd like to continue getting along peacefully as roommates, but she refused. She divided the entire house sitcom style. She split everything in half, putting labels with her name on half the things and labels with our names on other spaces that indisputably came with the apartment, built-in cabinets and stuff. She labeled the trash can. She rolled up her rug in the living room and moved it to her boyfriend's basement so we couldn't walk on it, and started hiding her belongings as if we would steal them. We had no problem whatsoever if she no longer wanted to share household items, but it was very dramatic. We found out from a previous roommate of hers that much of the furniture she labeled as hers, and therefore now off-limits to us, actually came with the apartment. We also learned that she had a very dramatic falling out with the previous roommates as well, where she did the same thing, dividing everything up to the extreme. What sucked most about this is because we started off friendly, we got rid of a lot of our household stuff so that we weren't taking up space having 2 of everything, after she vehemently insisted that we could use more of her things for the house and didn't need ours. So we had to go replace all of that, about $500. It's now I would like to point out that both me and my best friend are bigger-bodied people and identify as lesbians. My best friend being Hispanic while I'm white. Crazy roommates started accusing my best friend of stealing and breaking her belongings on purpose. Crazy little things like some small knick-knack she claimed she couldn't find, some broken plastic Christmas ornament bulbs in the back far corner of a closet. She would shake her down to Venmo her for the cost or buy her a replacement, and threatened to report her to the landlord for damaging her property otherwise. Our final attempt to reason with her and ask her if we could all just remain a civil roommate relationship resulted in her screaming in our faces for almost an hour, calling my best friend a bitch, telling us to move out, and said, quote, she would act like this every night if she wanted to, aka screaming and yelling at us. Both of us have anxiety disorders. I usually only suffer panic attacks once or twice a year, if that, but I began having them almost weekly. We could not stay there any longer, as the consistent harassment was hurting our performance at work and in law school and decimating our mental health. We decided to move ASAP, but we were on a year-long lease that goes until September 2024. The property managers and owners informed us that they would not let us out of the lease. We had been informing them for over a month about crazy roommates' behavior and our feeling of not being safe, but were told they don't handle roommate disagreements, too bad, so sad. However, we could sublet our rooms and find a new place. There was a vacant unit in the complex that was available, and we decided to take it in order to get out as soon as possible. We then attempted to find subletters as soon as possible. This is in Boston, so it's not hard to find subletters ever. Everyone needs housing, and our place was nice, with decent rent, to fill the rooms and avoid paying double rent. Crazy roommate, however, had decided to continue pushing us by any means necessary. She scared off multiple subletter candidates by giving off super controlling awkward vibes, ghosted them on tours, would not let us tour the place ourselves to show potential candidates, and sabotaged the process at every turn to make us pay double rent while she essentially lives in a 4-person apartment by herself. The fourth roommate is mostly absent, as she has a boyfriend and family nearby. Finally, after explaining what she was doing, the property manager told her to stop, and I was able to find subletters to sign within a single weekend. One has worked out great so far, but another one ghosted completely after living there for 2 months. Due to a visa issue, she went back to Ireland with no plan to continue paying rent, despite having signed an individual contract, a sublet agreement, with my best friend agreeing to the terms of the original lease and to the responsibility of rent through the end of it. Obviously, we don't expect her to pay forever after moving out, but she did not inform us until the last minute. Told us she found a replacement when she did not actually secure one, and gave no one time to replace her in time to pay January rent. So now there's an empty room again, and crazy roommate is playing the same game, communicating as minimally as possible, refusing to let us independently find candidates to fill the room, while also refusing to look herself. We have paid thousands and thousands of dollars we do not have to move away from her, and then months of paying double rent because she sabotages every attempt we make to sublet. Property manager does not care whatsoever, and the stress has taken a huge toll on both of us. Do we have any recourse at all for what she's done to us? It feels like there's just no hope. We couldn't stay living there, we were hardly sleeping and eating, having constant severe panic attacks. But of course she didn't threaten physical violence, and our only proof is some of the unhinged text messages she would send us. We've lost so much money. I'm an admin assistant, and my best friend is a law student, so you can imagine we do not have much to spare. Of course, there's also the girl who broke her sublet agreement contract, and has also cost my best friend tons more money, but I don't know if it's worth it to pursue. 2. Okay, my bad roommate stories are decades old, and honestly, they mostly make me laugh, now. When I was in college, me and 3 of my close friends found a 4-bedroom apartment to share. There were some growing pains. One of my friends at the time was adamant about not wanting to pay for cable TV, and the rest of us were all for it. So we had one bill that was split 3 ways while most were split 4. We also had all the typical stuff for college kids living together. One of my roommate's moms was making cookies for all of us, and he was hiding them in his room. His parents showed up one day to take him out for dinner, and she asked us if we liked the cookies she had been sending. He had to admit he had not shared them because we all told her we didn't know what she was talking about. We all thought it was funnier he got in trouble with his mom than he had not shared his cookies. One of my friends was dating the woman he would marry, and the first couple of months they were mostly at her place. But then it shifted, and they were practically always at ours. I have wondered if this frustrated our roommate, who for this story we will call Nate. Nate is the subject of many of my roommate's stories. Our apartment had built-in beds. You supplied the mattress, Nate had a mattress, but instead of bedclothes he just had a sleeping bag and a blanket. He put his desk in the very middle of his room so that he could watch his doorway while on his computer. His room had no other furnishings or decorations, just the bed with sleeping bag, desk with computer and chair. We were dumb college boys, but we did ask the various female friends that people brought over why people thought his room was creepy. They all said he had his room set up like a serial killer. Anyway, the best Nate story is about spring break. The rest of us all went home for spring break. We had family obligations of various types. Only Nate was staying in the apartment. When I left, everything was fine. When I came back, there was a 5-gallon bucket of water filled almost to the brim sitting in the hallway outside my room. So I go and ask Nate why there is a bucket of water in the middle of the hallway. Nate tells me he went to Home Depot and got the bucket when the ceiling started leaking. I ask if he has contacted the landlord yet. He says he went down to the office building, but it said that because it was spring break, to only call if it's an emergency. Now I got a little mad at this point, and I will admit, listeners, I have kept a critical piece of information from you. We lived in the middle of a 3-story complex. So I said, Nate, we live in the fucking middle apartment. If our ceiling leaks, it's an emergency. So we called the landlord, and they agreed that this was worth them knowing. Why was our ceiling leaking? The upper apartment was a loft. The people above us had installed snap-together hardwood floor and hung a basketball goal from the loft so they could play inside during the winter. The air conditioner water line had become decoupled and was running water into all kinds of spaces in the building. Anyway, Nate was not a bad guy, but he was for sure that kind of roommate. 3. I was trying to save money, so I was browsing roomies.com to find someone renting out a room. I have a cat, which narrowed down my options quite a bit. I found a guy who was okay with the cat, and there was another female tenant there, which gave me peace of mind. I did visit the house before moving in, and it was a bit older and could use some work, but I was okay with it. Fast forward to moving in. He asked me if I was okay with him crashing on the couch sometimes. I thought that was weird to ask. It's his couch, so I don't care if he sleeps on it, but homeboy basically made the living room his bedroom. There was one other bedroom upstairs, and I saw the door was ajar one day, and it was like an episode of Hoarders in there. Absolutely unlivable. So he slept downstairs, and honestly, he wasn't very hygienic. So it started to smell of his BO on the entire first floor. I noticed the deadbolt lock also didn't work. The first time I mentioned it, he flippantly said he would look at it later. I brought it up a couple days later more aggressively and told him to check it out himself. He said he didn't know it wasn't working, even though it was very obvious the lock didn't slide into place. Like, I refuse to believe the owner of this home would be unaware of something like that. Then one day the internet went down for a while. It was a little annoying since I'm taking online classes. Then the next day it was discovered that it was apparently malicious activity done by his ex-wife. No idea if that's true or not, but he had a ton of ex-wife and baby mama drama, which he would never stop talking about. I actually felt a little bit bad for him, so I invited him to go grocery shopping with me, just to get out of the house. As we get to the checkout lane, he suddenly had to go to the bathroom. He handed me a $100 bill to pay for his stuff, because he forgot his debit card. I thought it was odd, as a lot of stores don't accept large bills. It just felt very intentional that he suddenly had to pee when it was time to pay. It was annoying, but I didn't think too much of it. He presented himself as a pretty likable guy before I moved in, but quickly started getting on my nerves. He worked from home and hardly ever left. It was hard to have a brief interaction with him because he talks and talks forever. The kitchen was always kind of dirty. Constantly left his laundry in the washer and dryer, and didn't have any of his own toiletries, so he was either using ours or none at all. The second female tenant had to move out unexpectedly, military deployment, which sucked, because her living there is a part of what made me feel comfortable. But the final straw was coming home one morning after an overnight shift and noticing my table lamp had been moved from my dresser to the floor, and another small Himalayan salt lamp had been unplugged. If Dude was that stingy on electricity, he could have just said so. But I didn't want to be accusatory, so I went downstairs and asked if he had heard anything fall upstairs. He said no. It wasn't my cat, because the way the items were moved would require opposable thumbs. I can't find another reasonable explanation for those objects moving. So, on top of him being just dirty, smelly, and dishonest, I decided to move out. All things considered, things could have been worse. But I didn't want to stick around any longer, and he seemed totally dumbfounded that I was uncomfortable living there. 4. I lived with my brother and his friend Dave. All was going well until my brother moved his girlfriend Sarah in with us. About a week into staying with us, she started putting up to-do lists on our fridge. It was a list of chores to do, like clean the dishes, clean the kitchen, clean the bathroom, etc., on certain days assigned to certain people on those days. I really didn't like this because I felt that was something a parent does for their child. She was only a year older than me. I don't have to fucking do what you tell me to do when you tell me to just because you wrote on some list. What annoys me even more is that they didn't follow it. If it was my brother's day to do the dishes, some days he would skip it, and no one would say anything about it. If I skipped it, though, his bitch girlfriend would complain about it. I swear that sometimes she would do things on purpose to piss me off. Sometimes, on the night before it was my turn to do the dishes, she would cook a meal for her and my brother. I wasn't included, of course. She would leave those dirty dishes in that sink for the next day. I didn't clean none of that because I didn't make the mess. So of course the next day she would complain about me wondering why I didn't do the dishes. I told her it was because I didn't make the mess. I couldn't care less whose dish day it was. She made the mess, she cleans it. Simple. My brother was on her side in this too, which pissed me off more. A few days later, I noticed an edit on her little chore list. It now says that if anyone cooks a meal, they must clean up after themselves even if it is not their dish day. Again, it would be nice if they followed it, but they didn't. My brother and Dave would cook and not clean it up. I wasn't going to either because I'm not a maid. Eventually I would have to because there would be so many damn dishes in the sink because no one was doing them. But somehow I was the asshole here. It wasn't just the kitchen either. We fought over the bathroom not being cleaned as well. We lived in a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom house. My brother and Sarah had the master bedroom, and me and Dave had the other rooms with our bathroom in the hallway. I was cleaning the bathroom at first, when I felt like it because no one followed that stupid chore list anyways. Dave was cleaning it too at first, then he stopped. He claimed it was because I was not cleaning the bathroom, but that was some bull. We also had a child living with us as well. He was Sarah's son from a previous relationship. He would go in that bathroom and wreck it. He would piss on the floor, leave the sink full of toothpaste, and leave toilet paper all over the floor, sometimes after I just cleaned it. I wasn't about to go do all that work all over again, so I didn't re-clean it. Of course, I get bitched at for it by Dave. He thinks I'm not cleaning the bathroom at all, but I told him I was. It's just that child messing it up, but he never believed me. I told Sarah about her little brat son, and she didn't do a thing about it either. It's like she didn't care. All she would say is that she would talk to him about it. I don't even know if she ever did. Now, Sarah stayed in the master bedroom with my brother. They have their own bathroom yet, and still, she would come and look into our bathroom to see if it was clean. I hated that so much. I'm not a child. I don't need you checking up on me to make sure my chores are done. This is total bull. If it wasn't clean, she would bitch to me and Dave about it, saying someone had to clean it. It was ridiculous living with these people. I don't anymore, thankfully. I felt there was some bias going on, especially towards Sarah's son. I guess he could never do anything wrong in her eyes. I definitely felt there was some unfair treatment when it came to me. They could do things and get away with it that I could not. Thank God I don't live there anymore. 5. Hey, this is me venting about the situation. I'm a 26-year-old woman, and my friend is a 26-year-old man. And we've been friends since we were 12 years old, and we never fight or argue. Most of the time, we share the same brain cell. A year ago, we wanted to move out together. But I had a chance to move in with another friend, and I did it. He understood and also was the best call since he didn't have a job to pay the rent at that time. A year passed, the lease I signed was over, so we figured out maybe it was time to finally move together. We moved out in December. I had to go on business travel, so he got put in charge of everything. Our landlord is a woman, who I know thanks to my aunt. They're friends, so she's always been nice with me. Since the beginning, my friend didn't really like our landlord, but who cares as long as he was respectful, right? Well, she told me at the time that he was a hard-to-deal-with type of person. 3 months passed, and we had a lot of disagreements around cleaning and expenses. Some examples. He managed to leave everything more dirty than it was before cleaning. He constantly left his dishes in the sink all day. When he cooked, sometimes he forgot to turn off the oven, and also burned one of my spatulas and Tupperware. If something ran out, he would take days in replacing the stuff. When he did his laundry, he fucked the washing machine and didn't even try to fix it. I ended up fixing it. He ate my stuff and didn't replace it. Bought another box and he opened it as well without asking. He has a cat, and the litter constantly smells. He never took out the trash. Other minor things during just 3 months. We talked about it and he tried, but he always had excuses and always asked me to be more patient. But I guess everyone has limits, and you can't expect to constantly breach them, and people still treat you the same way. Unfortunately, I was not enjoying his company anymore. I was feeling exhausted of him, and constantly acting like I was his mom. I talked with him about having a contract, explained why, and he was so offended. He even said, "But we're not getting strikes right, 'cause that's bullshit." And I was like, "Dude, are you kidding? That's the exact point. We have to follow the rules in order to stay here." He acted like he was not responsible for any of the actions he did in the past months. I was in shock. He tried to gaslight me a couple of times during the conversation, and I couldn't believe it. He ended up agreeing about the contract, but I was not feeling sure. Honestly, I wanted to ask him to leave. Our landlord came to talk with us, and she didn't want my friend to be in the apartment, since some neighbors complained about the garbage he left outside the door, and the noise at night because he sometimes screamed while gaming. Some communication problems, and she asked him to leave, since she didn't sign the contract yet, and was not happy about the complaints and the lack of responsibility from him, because I was the only one in touch with her. During this conversation, I didn't say anything since there was the risk of our landlord actually kicking both of us out, so I agreed to everything she said, but of course my friend was not happy with her decision, and started complaining about her, and saying bullshit, honestly. At the end, they set up a date for him to leave the apartment, and that was it. We talked later, and he was mad at me because I didn't have his back, but honestly, guys, I was feeling so stressed out about the whole situation that the least of my problems was defending him for the stuff he actually did. How could he actually expect that from me? Anyway, he's moving out in 2 weeks, and I feel so relieved because living with him was costing me my mental and also physical health, and our friendship. Probably gonna distance ourselves from each other, but I believe in the future we will talk again, and even if we don't, it's okay. I accept whatever turns out. Update. He left the apartment yesterday, while I was not home. He took out all his stuff. When I arrived at the apartment, it smelled so bad. It was the stench of some organic food he had left, and he had worms in it. Ugh, oh my god. But he claims to be so mature and such a good person. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Bad Roommates, Episode 7. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Before you go, hit that like button. And we all love hitting that like button, don't we? And if you'd like to get early access to these videos, well, that's pretty easy to do. You just need to support me on my Patreon page, which is in the description. Click on that, take you to it, support me there for as little as $1 a month. Or more, if you like. I'm not going to say no to more. You'll also find a link to the Hellfreezer merchandise store on Teespring. And if you really like today's video, and you want to leave a tip, you can do that by clicking on the heart with a $sign underneath the videos and select the tip of your choice. You don't have to do that, but I appreciate it, and it helps me pay my bills. Okay. Don't think we've any other business today, so let's move right along to Hellfreezer's question of the day. And today's question is... I have to think how to phrase this one carefully. Is there like anything, a product, an object, something that you'd heard about all your life, you thought you'd never tried until you actually saw it one day and you realized, oh, that's actually this thing. We just call it a different name in this country. For me, I'd heard of fig Newtons a lot. Heard it mentioned in American movies, TV shows, I'd heard friends talk about them. I didn't realize that a fig Newton is just a fig roll, which I'd been eating all my life and I rather enjoy. If you have anything you'd like to share, then why not leave it in a comment below. And before we go, we'll have the answer of the day from a previous video. And today's answer comes from Bad Roommates number 5. And this question was in relation to social media trends from the past that you never participated in. And today's answer comes from Deeper Things. Motorola Embark was a disappointment, never was a fan of Blackberries, missed the MySpace revolution, and didn't miss it at all. Thank you very much for your answer. And with that, I'm going to head off for now, so until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.